Lovely. Okay, so I'm not actually going to give that much of an introduction because, as I said to Christopher just beforehand, you don't want to be hearing from me. I would love to pass straight over to Christopher for tonight's talk. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me all right? So the microphones and the speakers are working. Great. How lovely to see some of you that have faces I already know, and how lovely to see faces that I don't. So a warm welcome to you all. It's a special thing to talk about meditation or spiritual practice. One could also talk about diet. What do we eat? We could talk about physical health. What do we need to do to keep physically healthy? There's all these things related to self-help in some way. Maybe we do therapy. Maybe we have some kind of communication with someone in the form of supervision or counseling that keeps us talking, keeps us on track, somehow connected to our intentions, our goals in life. So we have all these tools given to us by wise people. And the extraordinary thing is that we forget how wise we all actually are. Without doubt, there's not one of you here that if somebody very earnestly really needed help and asked you about the meaning of life, or something about the invisible, or something about God, or spiritual practice, you'd all come up with something very wise. I mean, you might try to shrug it off. Oh, I don't know, really. That's not really my realm. But if you knew that the person looked you in the eyes and said to you, look, I'm here to be seen, you know, that would call you up pretty quickly. And when you would answer, okay, and you breathe deeply and say, I see you. And out of the intimacy of that little exchange, you would then have to answer the question, well, what is a practice, a spiritual practice, meditation? And without doubt of you, each answer would be very different. You'd all come up with a different answer. But without doubt, somehow you would all connect to your heart. Either consciously, maybe some of you might, even through many years of practice, might want to connect to your head, your forehead, or around your head, the energy around your head. And as soon as you do that, as soon as you connect to your heart, and I don't necessarily mean the physical heart, although that has a tremendous wisdom in it as well, but that we call a heart space, a heartfelt feeling. The answer to the question will come. And although I'd like to ask each of you to answer that question now, I won't, because the powers that be have created a situation where I have to try and give an answer to that as best as I'm able. But I would also like to underline that I'm only giving the thought that I'm going to share with you, the feelings that I want to give you, because you are actually sitting there in time and space, really alive, however great the illusion of this medium of the screen is, and the fact that everything we do together is being manipulated by digital on and off, black and white, and miraculously you appear for me. From a spiritual point of view, you are alive and you're awake. And that's the part of you that I will try and connect to tonight in the time that we have. So, as a sort of symbol, if you like, of this heart space that I would like to connect to, even though I'm reaching out to your minds, I would like to light this candle. And by lighting a candle, something extraordinary happens. Firstly, you have to make a decision to light the candle for whatever reason. And I've decided I'm going to light this candle, but then I have to do it. And in doing so, I have to go and fetch the matches. I have to go and fetch the candle. And then if I'm doing it properly, I have to inwardly think, why am I doing this? Is it just some abstract movement? I go sit in front of my altar, maybe I light my candle, but then my thoughts go off all over the place. I try to bring myself back and read something sacred, and off go my thoughts again. And then I think of the breakfast that I haven't had or what I should be doing today. And it all implodes and explodes, even before I've lit the candle. So the candle, we could say, the lighting of the candle is a symbol of trying to burn away that prevents you from being who you really are. And as it burns up the match, so does our spiritual development assist the burning of our physical body. And as it continues to burn in this candle, so as we listen and work together, trying to understand this process of spiritual practice, we burn our body. If you've had a very large meal and you're satiated and everything's hunky-dory, you don't actually want to meditate. You can try, but it becomes quite difficult. The great masters will tell you, and you yourselves, of course, being great masters, will obviously realize that when the stomach is quiet, having said that, it mustn't rumble too much because it'll distract you as well. But when it's quiet and you haven't eaten too much, the mind is more active. The mind is able to draw attention to itself and notice its eternal nature. Almost like you could ask yourself, when the candle burns to the bottom, the flame suddenly at the last moment just where does it go to when it disappears? So it's gone out, the candle's gone out. But hasn't that flame gone back to where the mother flame came from? Just a thought. The same way you could say that when you come to that final moment, when you breathe your last breath and your last candle of life is gone, and your body relaxes and it's given over to the weight of matter, Mother Earth, where have you gone? Where is this space or anti-space No space, no time, place, no place where you go. Because you do go. You as a being, you as a spiritual being living in this vessel that we call the body, with all its pains and aches and groans and stuff that the body has to do. And in there is this, as it is in you now, this powerful, blazing fire, the fire of life, the fire of the God in you, if you like, the spirit in you, or let's say the high self in you, burning brightly, irrespective to what the body's doing. It is absolutely magnificent. It is the greatest mystery on earth that a human being burns brightly, whatever the body might be doing, however awful the situation you might be in. It burns and gives light and warmth and life. And it's this deep feeling that all of us have in some way or other, certainly those I see sitting here, know that it's nurturing that life, being aware that that life actually needs attention, that I'm actually not a child anymore who can just rely on my parents, my mother, my guardian, to look after me and change my nappies and give me food when I need me or send me off to school. But I've reached an age where I know that I have a part of me that is able to look after myself. There's a part of me that has to take responsibility for the pure, sensitive nature of high self. So it's almost as if you could say that the candlelight, before I lit the candle, is already there, bright and shining in the mother candle. And only by lighting the match and lighting the candle do I bring down the light, the fire, so I can see it with my eyes. So I had to do something to bring it, to make it visible. And so too do we have to do something to allow that spiritual light and fire to be more active in ourselves, that we get to know ourselves, answering the question, who am I? Why am I actually here? And then resounds this extraordinary word that's over the arch of Delphi. O human being, know thou thyself. What does that mean, know yourself? Why does that come again and again and again? Why is it when you go out in the rain, you feel that the rain's talking to you? Yes, you're wet. Who are you? Look at yourself. You see the trees blowing in the wind and they're talking to you. Look at you. Know yourself. And the stones resound, the crystals. Know yourself. The winds shout and whisper. Know yourself. Know who you are. And slowly as we get older and the wrinkles develop, this whispering becomes clearer. And yes, I've been doing my spiritual practice for years and years. And yes, we've been doing our exercises and we've read all the good books and we've been to church and we've prayed and we've done all the things that we feel we were able to do. And we've done them as best we could. And always is that niggling feeling. Did I really do the best that I could? Was it enough to have read a book yet again? Or another book? Or follow another guru? Because I didn't meet Nirvana, the last guru that I met. And I tried so hard. I followed the Buddhist path. I followed the path of the Hindu. I followed the path of Christ. I followed the path of Muhammad. I followed the path of the great philosophers, Aristoteles, Fichte, Hegel, Helling, and so forth. And each time you're thrown back onto yourself and you know, I can't find it out there. I do have to do it myself. And however crude it might feel and sound, there is not a great difference if you would decide you want to go to the gym and you want to develop certain muscles. You can go once and you can do a bit of treadmill, a bit of weightlifting, a bit of whatever, and you get sore muscles and you think, well, I'm not sure if I want to do that again. That was a bit of a pain. But you know very well that if you're going to make it work, you're going to have to go back again. And particularly if you have somebody that guides you and you go back again and again and again, usually the point is 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, if you're able to stick at it, you can actually feel the change. There's this magic 6-week moment for the first little bit of feeling, oh, my lungs are actually working differently. I can feel myself, my body better. And just as much as that is a reality for the physical body, the same goes if you follow a path of spiritual development. And here I'd like to share something that I find a little difficult. I find it difficult because I find it difficult to describe or to explain. Every human being on earth, whatever they're doing, they are on a path of spiritual development, whether they know it or not. The choices that they make, the jobs that they do, the suffering that they go through, the joy that they are part of, is part of them growing up, trying to bring them closer to themselves. Illness particularly is the great teacher. So if you then decide, for whatever reason, or you've been brought up with it at home, to go to church or to pray in some way or go to a temple or a mosque, and you've had that introduced into your destiny quite early on, you have had this relationship to spirit, to God, as it were, brought in with you at a young age. So it's not that foreign to have to make a step again from, okay, am I going to go to the church again and be told by the priest what I'm going to do, or the Bible, or the book? Or am I going to try and be my own priest and try to do what I think is right for me? And there may be some of you who from an early age or unexpectedly at some moment have had a so-called spiritual experience. And there's as many possibilities of having experiences of the spirit as there are of human beings on the earth. You might have suddenly experienced your mother who's died ages ago, or a loved one. Or you might see something that you know is not there, and yet there they are, as clear as crystal, standing in front of you. Or a voice that you can't get out of your head. And there might be this initial feeling of, hang on, am I going a bit nuts? Am I, oh God, I'm going to go and see a psychiatrist about this. Do I need pills? Which is what is happening more and more, I might add. So in order to dampen down this feeling of being insane, you take pills, as opposed to asking yourself, what is it that I'm actually seeing, hearing, knowing? And if that question remains awake and alive, then comes the question, am I able to develop myself in such a way that I'm able to see the truth of the invisible? Because the invisible world reveals itself to us mortals in many, many different ways, and most of them are of illusionary nature, conjuring up all things out of our past and making us believe that it's true. But to be absolutely certain that what you're seeing is a true revelation of spirit, you must be as certain of that as you are certain that I can pick up the candle and blow it out. So, all of you, I believe, who are sitting here know what the activity is of prayer or to meditate. And usually, I think you've all experienced this. Usually, I have to close the door. Maybe if you're disciplined, you take the telephone off the hook or pull it out so it doesn't ring. Maybe if you remember, you turn your mobile off. Maybe you close the curtains. And maybe you go and sit down quietly in a chair that's comfortable or on your meditation cushion. And maybe you do light a candle. And maybe you have a little bell that you sound, that you ring. A whole series of portals that you go through before you close your eyes. And then when you close your eyes, then all hell breaks loose. Because how can you distinguish between all those thoughts that come charging in? How can you put them aside and allow that space, that sacred space, to be there for you? And know that you can become closer to the God of your understanding if you are able to be quiet inside. And knowing that's very difficult. So just those little steps that I mentioned, you could say those are the steps when you see a cathedral and you go to the door, you go through the first bit and there's a kind of another door. You take off your coat in there or whatever, you wipe your feet and you go inside another one and you go into the main space and you go down the aisle and there's another space. And then finally, you might get to the altar. And in some places, of course, it's not on the altar, it's behind the altar. But these are archetypal pictures. They're steps. They're processes. And if we want to really be, and I use this word carefully, I have to be careful with the word discipline, because discipline for many of us is like a whip. It's the last thing I want, to be disciplined. It sounds so incredibly male and rather martial. And many of us have been disciplined at school, and we do not want that. So if I would use the word love instead of discipline, and I would suggest that when you first see the cathedral in the distance or the temple, or you first have an inkling of, I need to pray, I need to meditate, I need to somehow connect, that thought immediately brings up a feeling of reverence. So you don't go smashing into the church. Usually, as you get closer to your temple, or maybe the room where you have your little altar, you walk in there. I like to think you walk in there in the way that angels dare to tread. So that already before you go into the door where your sitting cushion is, your meditation chair, careful before you open the door. Slow. Already prepare yourself before you open that door. And then when you close the door behind you, you're in a different space. Breathe in the space. Feel the time change as you walk to your chair. And with a sigh, you kind of sit down because it is time. It is time. You've told yourself it is time. And then you light that candle. Maybe you think of someone that's died, a loved one, or a teacher. But already just in that thought, you're connecting to the unknown, to spirit. And then you sit quietly, and maybe you have something on the altar, something there that reminds you of spirit, of the unknown, the invisible, and all the little self-made objects, scarves, crosses, symbols of that otherness are there helping you to take the mind away from the mundane, from the daily musts and have-tos. And if you're able, then maybe you let your breath slow down. And when you do that, your heartbeat gets quieter. So that you allow that body, that vessel, that sacred part of yourself to just be still. And now I'm going to make a jump. Because what happens after that would need another conversation. Because it becomes very individual, what you need, what your journey is to the God of your understanding. What I'd like to share with you here, and is what I'm going to be working on in January for 6 months with those that want to, is taking hold of yourself. And by that I mean taking hold of your shadow. The shadow is that part of you that will bend over backwards to prevent you from connecting to God. It will do anything in its power to prevent you from concentrating. Just as you're about to, I haven't been to the toilet yet. God, there's this phone call I need to make. And the list goes on. Or, which is much worse, of course, when you have these nagging emotions, somebody that you've had an argument with, or much nicer if you've fallen in love with someone, the feeling, those emotions that come up, or your favorite hobby, the things that you suppress or don't do that you'd actually like to do. And it's always that moment when you're supposed to be quiet, when these longings come up again, these desires take over. So, interestingly enough, and I find it fascinating, and some of you already heard this from me, rather than go inwards, the first exercise is to go outward. So rather than think upon the meaning of life and the extraordinary things that enable us to come into the earth, onto earth, into earth, onto earth, if we just take a matchstick, something as simple as a matchstick. So I could also go Om, 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 Om. And I have tremendous respect for those that are able to really use that as a mantra. It is the most holiest of words. It is the most cosmic sound that we can create. And irrespective to that power, there is also the power of, am I able to think about a matchstick for 5 minutes without being distracted? And however mundane that might seem, what actually happens with a matchstick or anything else that you have, any object that you might have nearby, a pen or a pair of glasses, the simpler the better. And I start thinking about this. What am I doing? I'm calling up that part of me that thinks, that has mental images the whole day. Go through the whole day, I'm thinking, they take me over. I am being thought by the world all day until I drop off to sleep at night, or if I fall asleep during the day also. And I'm taking that power, and that would be the question what that power is, and I say, I am going to think about the matchstick according to the thoughts determined by the matchstick itself. So I will think about the matchstick. You say I. And the power of the human being that is able to say, I am, that is sacred. And it's the power of the I am, and I would dare to say it's only the power of the I am at the end of the day that can give you freedom. So when you start to determine your own thoughts related to the matchstick, you, out of freedom, are thinking your own thoughts. So you'll think, how big is the matchstick? What color is the matchstick? What's its shape? What's this little brown thing at the end? What does it feel like? Does it smell? What does it smell of? Does it taste? Where did it come from? It came from my matchbox. So it was together with a whole bunch of other matches. It's touched my fingers, so it's got some of my own finger fat on it, grease. In the matchbox, it didn't have any grease. But where did the matchbox come from? It came from co-op. So, but before it came from co-op, it came from a van being delivered from, in this case, they're Swedish matches. So it came from Sweden. In other words, I am using my fantasy to a certain extent, my imagination, but I am determining what my thoughts are doing. And however bizarre, or maybe not so bizarre, however simple that exercise is, you are doing more for your inner development than an hour reading a book about spirit. Now, I know that's a bit of a statement, bit of a harsh statement. Why I say that is because when you read a book, however beautiful and however sacred it is, it's the book that's reading you. Can you follow me? You're having to think the thought. You have to follow what's being written for you, but you're following the melody that's being created by someone else. And it is very important to do that. Incredibly important. That's one of the first steps in higher development, that you read the great masters, that you begin to adjust your materialistic thinking to the thinking of those who have thought spirit before you. And when you put the book aside and you take a matchstick and say, I'm going to think about the matchstick and nothing else, consistently for 5 minutes today, before breakfast, and tomorrow, and the day after, and 7 days, and 2 weeks, and 3 weeks, and a month, then you begin to notice what you notice if you go to the gym every day and practice. And what you notice is that when you listen to someone talking, you're able to follow them clearly. You're not vague about your feelings about the person, but you're being able to follow quite clearly what they're saying. You'll also notice the difference between a true thought and a false thought, because you've trained, or beginning to train, your thinking to think about something that is related to a fact, i.e. the matchstick, as opposed to just a vague idea. And that's why you choose something very simple, because your thinking then is held in rein by what you see, by your senses, and you don't drift off. So it's your thinking that is the greatest gift that the God of your understanding, or the Creator, the power of all things, has given to you. There is no animal on earth that is able to think, but a human being is able to think. And in this day and age, to be able to think freely and to differentiate truth from illusion, when we're surrounded by, I don't know how many times we've read this in politics, where truth has become a lie, where love becomes hate, where beauty has become ugly, and so forth and so on. But the younger generation, for us, I think it's much easier. But for the younger generation, they're in a world of utter confusion, although it might not seem like it, because they can't hold on to an inner feeling of truth. The media consistently contradicts what is true and what is false. Great people stand up there and shout a lie. And somebody says, this is beautiful. And yet your heart tells you this is not beautiful. It's ugly. But at the end of the day, it's only you who can decide. Not have an opinion about what somebody else is, but really what you feel sings with your heart, resonates with your mind. And to do that, to be independent, and in theory, well, let's say, I would say quite to a great deal in practice, interfaith ministers are free-thinking human beings. As a rule, they don't like to be led by the nose. So there is hope in the world. Because you have to decide what it is that you want, what is right for you. And not just an opinion, but a real inner conviction. So this first exercise, the first of 6, is, can I think clearly? Can I summon up the willpower to think about one thing for 5 minutes a day and slowly train my thinking, my focus, my concentration? And when you work in others, in a circle, in a group, talk about this. We talk about the struggle that we have. There are different exercises that you can do to focus, drawing, and all sorts of other things. But fundamentally, it's this, the simplicity of a thing that will help me be anchored in a truth that's outside of myself, that my senses tell me are true. Even though if I'm a dedicated Buddhist, I might say this is Maya, this is just illusion. But that's a different story. So then the second exercise, and I call them exercise, but I did say discipline. The word discipline we can change for the word love. Because when I connect to my own concentration, I actually am aware that I love myself. Because it's spirit. I am spirit, and spirit is love. When spirit resonates with your heart, it is love. So when you do this exercise, it's love of yourself that says, I want to take hold of myself. I want this beauty of freedom that is me to be able to stand in the world and help others, wide awake, not out of superstition, but out of actual knowledge that I'm awake. I can listen. When somebody says, I want to be seen, you can look at them and absolutely in the depth of your heart say, and I see you. Almost to say, and I love you. I love the spirit in you. I love the whole of you that's trying to be seen, to be recognized for what you are. So in thinking, we then take the next step, which is action. You get up in the morning, you fall out of bed, or you climb out of bed, or you roll out of bed. And then it begins. The whole day happens to you from morning until night. Now, those of you that have children or have had children, oh my God. It's just one continual stream of action. It's not bad. That's your life. That's your destiny. You could say that's your karma. But again, as you are thought by the world, the books and your job and everything you're supposed to do, and your thinking is being taken hold of by outside, so your actions taken hold of from outside. You do what your duty is. You do what you're supposed to do. You do what your body tells you to do. You do in order to survive. You eat, you drink, and everything else. And again, you are lived, totally natural. But if you're going to take this step through the second portal, once you've seen the door of the cathedral and you want to go inside, once you've registered that door and you've thought about the door and you know what lies may be behind the door, if I open it in freedom and not because the vicar has told me to, with all respect to the vicars, but I go through that door. I've then made a decision. So if you would choose something in the day to do, an action that is totally unimportant, not an action that you would normally do, and not an action that is necessary, but an action that you choose to do out of your own free will. So, for example, you might choose at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to take off your right shoe, to shake out an invisible stone, to look inside of it to see the stone is still there, which it was not there in the first place, and then to put it back on again. Then you've done something which you could say is totally ridiculous, but you've done it because you decided to do it at a very particular time, 3 o'clock. And you've interrupted the stream of will of being lived during the day. You've interrupted that process. It's almost like you put on the handbrake of your car in the middle of the motorway, and the car screeches to a halt, and you get out and you look at the view because you wanted to look at the view. You stop the process. You stop the endless stream of time and space that's living you every single second. And you say, no, I'm going to do something that I decide to do. You take off your shoe, you twiddle it around, you shake out an imaginary stone, you look inside to see whether it's still there, and you put it on again. You could even buy yourself a little plant and decide to water that plant every day at a particular time, not because I like the plant, but I bought it to do this exercise with. It might take about 2 minutes to go to the tap, to fill the watering can, to walk back to the plant, to water the plant, and then to put the watering can back where it came from. And then you get on with your life. So again, you've interrupted something. And in that interruption, you've created a space. You've created a place of freedom, potential freedom. I'm mentioning here the radical end result of the exercise. There's 100 much softer qualities that we will work on. We can work on just being able to be aware of our thinking as we go through the day, or doing a certain action during the day in a mindful way is similar. Thich Nhat Hanh, that was his whole being, was to be mindful, to let my actions to be in flow, in harmony. That's another part of this exercise. There we go. Sorry, just lost you. And the third one, and that's as far as I'm going to go today with this, and then we'll maybe see if there's any questions. The third one is equilibrium of soul. That our feelings don't toss us up and toss us down. I like this, I don't like this. I love this, I'm happy about this, I'm really upset about that. And again, it's the emotions of the world, the music, the sounds, the faces, the people, the meetings, our loved ones, our children, our parents, our work, our colleagues that continually shake us up. But as long as we're being shaken up by the world, we can't actually listen. If you're upset or very happy and somebody says, I'm here to be seen, you can't see them. Full stop. In order to see someone, not only must you be able to concentrate, not only must you be able to stop all your own stuff from happening, but you must be able to create an even keel in your soul. So it's like a smooth lake. There's only the ripples of the whispering of the unknown touching the surface of your soul. That is what is alive. So your soul becomes like one great ear. One great ear turned towards the invisible, towards the finer things, and not turned towards materialism, which picks up everything. That's what the ear has an onslaught of things going at it all day. But turn it the other way around. And the subtlety of what you can hear, the subtlety of a human's voice, a bird's song, the whispering of the winds in the leaves, the sounds of raindrops, all that can be heard. The language of the mysteries can be heard when your own storms, your own tidal waves, tsunamis of life have settled. So the third exercise is equanimity of soul. And those are the three main building blocks. The others we can look at another time. So it's like the head, freedom, the chalice to receive the wisdom. It's like your limbs going into the world, not doing what you're told to do all the time, but determining your actions that serve the highest goals in your life. The third one is your heart, your feelings, equanimity. So the heart chakra begins to resound, becomes sensitive for the finer qualities of nature, of human beings, of life in general. So those are the three, let's say, first building blocks, and they're different to the actual meditation. We'll also be working on that as well. But basically, one could say, if I'm not able to get those three together, then meditation becomes quite difficult. It is always difficult and will remain a struggle. And even if you're very far in your meditative practice, by practicing those three, and you go very high in your meditations, when you come back down, you know that you're grounded. And you don't practice spiritual bypassing, I think, as we call it a lot, where you think, I'm all right, I'm a spiritual person. Oh, it's just destiny. It's karma. Oh, God wanted it like this. But where we know that we are in balance, and my thinking is clear, my actions are truthful, and my feelings come out of love. So that's all I'm going to say today. It's an unusual situation to just talk and not have interaction with you lovely people. But there we go. So, Sass, I'm not sure whether you'd like to have a little time for if there are any questions, or if you'd just like to close. How would you like to do this?
I'm very aware of the time, and there may be some people that do need to head off now, in which case, thank you so much for being with us. But do you have a few minutes for questions, perhaps?
I do, absolutely. I could give us another 10 minutes if need be, for
No.
those that wanted to, but by all means, please, those that need to go, please don't feel guilty. No guilt.
Well, before we open up questions, can I just say thank you so much for your time? There's so many words that I would love to be able to say right now in gratitude. Words have gone. So just thank you deeply. And I'd like to open up for anyone. If anyone has any questions, please just jump in. And so there is just a mention in the chat for people that are watching on YouTube from Kate Napier, just saying, I am so grateful for your teaching, an example around how to light a candle, Christopher. But sadly, she does need to go.
Bless her. Lovely. Thank you.
Any other questions or statements, perhaps?
Just let it sit for a little while. There's no hurry. And you can all turn your mics on.
Oh, good point.
Sass. Hello. Hello. I'm so sorry that I joined late. I was in a prior engagement. And it was just really lovely to hear. And do you know how many memories I had actually of seeing lovely Jane and Christopher here about lighting candles? It's amazing, isn't it? Just the actual thought process that goes behind it. And it still resonates every day when I light my candles. It's really a very deliberate act of what am I actually invoking when I light a candle. I still do that every single day.
Oh.
But I just wanted to ask, this particular format of the spiritual practice group going forward, is it going to be something that we work together, kind of going through these practices?
Yes,
online?
I'm going to have to adjust to a certain extent, because last year I did it with the group, and I think about 8 of us, and we had a Tuesday evening 2 hours, and we had a Saturday morning 4 hours. So there was a lot of work going there. We worked as a group, we split up into twos, we exchanged our experiences, the difficulties we had, or things that went very easy, and really were able to have a really good exchange. So it wasn't a one-way thing, but really just opening up to what was there. So in theory, I'm going to continue doing what I've just explained, but in more hands-on, more detail, try and bring it closer to the reality of our daily life. Hello, Paula. My goodness. And to see how that just continues through the constellation of people that are there. So really, as I want to do it more, what are the needs of the people that turn up? And to be able to listen to what they want, what they would like. So I think we probably have the little markers, those 6 markers, those 6 portals that we'll go through. And from there, see how is your spiritual practice actually going? What are the challenges that you are having? I think that would be more the format that I'll use.
Thank you.
Could I just ask, how can people find out more about the group that you'll be leading?
Well, that's a very good question. It will be going out in the OSIF Onespirit not newspaper, what do you call it? The I Connect. It'll be there. It's on the website and so forth. And I'm going to put it. I've dared to start off Instagram, and I find it a really scary business to do Instagram. My youngest son sort of keeps on telling me how I'm supposed to do it, and then I cock it up and make an absolute mess of it, and then we've got to try and get it working again. I forget what all the little icons mean. So in theory, hopefully that'll be another source of where I'll be advertising it.
Lovely, thank you. Can I just ask the group actually, how has tonight's talk landed? Are you able to speak on that? How are you feeling inside? I know I'm feeling quite spaced out, if I'm absolutely honest. Oh, please just jump in, Karen.
Yeah, I think spaced out describes quite well, but I think it's not so much spaced out, but more spaced in for me. This is profound food for thought for me, and food for emotion, and food for exploration, and I really feel that this was a great gift, and I say thank you from my heart.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, Paula, we can only just about hear you. Oh, I'm afraid we really can't hear what you're saying there.
Don't worry, I'll put it in the chat.
Lovely to see you anyway.
Thank you, Paula.
Yes, as I also said, to have a sort of an hour, or was it about 50 minutes of continual sort of verbal material, it is quite a lot to take in. But also I hope that I was able to take you on a journey so that the process of thinking those thoughts was able to experience a process. And when you're experiencing a process, sometimes it's quite difficult to suddenly, okay, well, what did I actually just go through? Because what you went through it's as it were inside of you. It takes a bit of time to, as it were, bring one's consciousness to bear on these things.
Yeah, I think as Karen said, it's such a gift. Thank you. I feel the seeds have been planted. It's going to, I think, take tonight for the thoughts to really bloom around it. So thank you so much, Christopher. I think I will stop the recording here. Thank you to everyone who's joined us on YouTube for this long.
So, dear friends, as we lit the candle in the beginning, I'm going to blow the candle out at the end and give that back to where it came from. And knowing that the candle is still strong, still very solid. The top is warm, but the base is strong and cool. So if you can imagine this is you, you're strong, the bones are strong, the blood is strong. Whatever's happening to you, you're strong. That flame, even though I blow it out here, is in you strong, asking to be cared for. So wishing you much strength to keep the candle alight in your hearts. This is so important in the times we're in at the moment. They burn brightly. Don't doubt yourselves. love yourselves. Bye, everyone. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.